Welcome to Biography Central. You are listening to Life of Sri Ramakrishna, a complete biography. Chapter 36. Tarak Nath Nityagopal. Tarak Nath Nityagopal belonged to the Goshal family of Bursat in the district of 24 Parganas. His father, Ram Kanai Goshal, was legal advisor for the Rani Rosmani estate. He was a great devotee of the Divine Mother and used to frequent the Kali temple of Dakshineshwar during the sadhana period of Sri Ramakrishna. Thus, he came to know the Master rather intimately. At that time, the Master was suffering from the burning sensations which medicines could not cure. One day, the Master told Ram Kanai, who was visiting him, of his affliction and asked if he could suggest any remedy. Ram Kanai recommended him to wear on his arm his Ishta Kavacha, an amulet with the Lord's holy name, and he was instantly relieved. From his very boyhood, Tarak used to practice meditation. The noble desire to pierce the veil that separates the seen from the unseen stirred his mind at an early age. Like many religious-minded young men of the time, Tarak was a member of the Brahmo Samaj under Keshab Chandra Sen, from whose writings he first came to know about the Master. About this time, he went to Delhi, where he continued his religious discipline and spent hours with a friend discussing God and religion. One day, in answer to his query about samadhi, his friend said that real samadhi was a rare phenomenon, but he knew of one man who had certainly experienced that blessed state. He told about Sri Ramakrishna and referred to some incidents of the Master's life. Tarak became deeply interested and eagerly awaited the day that he would be able to meet him. After some time, he returned to Calcutta and began to attend the religious services of the Brahmo Samaj. From a relative of Ramchandra Dutt, he learnt many things about the Master. Gradually, the ideals of the Brahmo Samaj became unsatisfactory to him. He was eager to dive deep into the mysteries of spiritual life and realize the truth. At this time, during 1882, he heard one day that the Master was going to visit Ramchandra. He resolved to avail himself of this opportunity to meet him, and when the long-looked-for evening arrived, he went to the house of Ram, where, before a crowded audience, the Master in a semi-conscious state was talking. Tarak listened to the words with attention. He was anxious to learn something about samadhi. He caught a few words and was astonished to find that that was the Master's subject. He was overjoyed and left with the determination to see the Master next Saturday at Dakshineshwar. He did not know much about Dakshineshwar, but a friend agreed to take him there. When they reached Dakshineshwar, the evening service was about to begin. The Master was walking on the bank of the Ganges with Bhavanath. Tarak approached him and touched his feet. Sri Ramakrishna learnt that he came from Calcutta and inquired of him about the health of Ramchandra and Narendranath, without even knowing if these two devotees were known to him. Tarak was much surprised to find the great interest the Master had in his devotees and said, "I do not know much about them. They must be well." The Master next inquired if he had seen him on the previous Saturday at the house of Ram. Tarak replied in the affirmative. Asking him to follow, the Master went to the north veranda. Bhavanath spread a mat on the floor, on which all sat. "In what do you believe?" asked the Master. "In God with form or without form?" "In God without form," replied Tarak. "You can't but admit the divine Shakti also," said the Master, and he took the boy to the Kali temple. The evening service was going on. Sri Ramakrishna prostrated himself before the image. Tarak at first hesitated to follow his example, because, according to the ideas of the Brahmo Samaj, the image was nothing but stone. But suddenly the thought flashed in his mind, "Why should I have such petty ideas? I hear that God is omnipresent. He lives everywhere. Then he must be present in the stone image as well." Whereupon he prostrated himself before the image. Sri Ramakrishna requested Tarak again and again to remain overnight. "Stay here tonight," he said. "You can't gain any permanent good by the chance visit of a day. You must come here often." Tarak begged to be excused, as he had already said he would stay with his friend. Then he took leave of the Master, promising to see him next evening. When he came again, Sri Ramakrishna asked him for some ice. In those days, it was a difficult task to make or procure ice. Tarak did not know where to get it. He spoke of the matter to a friend who was acquainted with Surendra, and the latter procured some and sent it to Sri Ramakrishna. Tarak became better and better acquainted with the master. The latter one day said to him, "I do not generally ask one who comes to me about his father's name or whereabouts. I only look into his heart and read his feelings. But I wish to know something about your father and people at home." He was agreeably surprised to learn that Ram Kanai was his father, and telling of the service the latter had done him, wished that he might see him again. Some time later, Ram Kanai came to Dakshineshwar and prostrated himself before Sri Ramakrishna, who placed his foot on his head and entered into samadhi. Ram Kanai eagerly grasped the master's feet and burst into tears. Tarak was greatly attracted by the master. He was always on the lookout for an opportunity to see him. One day, probably on the occasion of his third or fourth visit, Sri Ramakrishna took him aside and asked him to put out his tongue. Then he wrote something on it, and the boy at once felt a strange sensation within him. His mind was withdrawn from the external world, and he went into deep meditation. Another time the master did the same thing with the same results. Referring to the state of his mind at this time, Tarak said, "I often felt inclined to cry in the presence of the master. One night, I wept profusely, standing in front of the Kali temple. The master was anxious in my absence, and when I went to him, he said, 'God favors those who can weep for him. Tears thus shed wash away the sins of former births.' Another day, I was meditating in the Panchavuti when a master came near. No sooner had he cast his glance at me than I burst into tears. He stood still without uttering a word. A sort of creeping sensation passed through me, and I began to tremble all over. The master congratulated me on attaining this state and said it was the outcome of divine emotion. He then took me to his room and gave me something to eat. He could arouse the latent spiritual powers of a devotee at a mere glance. Now Tarak realized that he had come to a man who could illumine the way to the ultimate goal of existence. The closer he associated with the master, the more he felt that his ties were being cut by the silent influence of his guru. Married though he was, the world began to lose all attraction for him. He felt that Sri Ramakrishna was the consummation of all religions. To know him fully was to know God. With the awakening of this knowledge, Tarak's love and devotion for the master increased 100-fold. Sri Ramakrishna cherished a great love for this disciple. He took charge of him and molded his spiritual life in all possible ways. Another young man named Nityagopal was a frequent visitor at Dakshineshwar and had a high regard for Sri Ramakrishna. He experienced great emotion at the name of God, and while listening to religious songs often fell into trances. Sri Ramakrishna loved him greatly and used to say that he had attained the Paramahansa state. Days and nights he would spend in prayer and meditation, and his chest glowed under the influence of divine fervor. He was indeed a great soul, and the master was seen to dance in an exalted mood, clasping the hands of this fortunate youth. This indicated an exceptional degree of purity in Nityagopal. When both were in this lofty state, they spoke to each other in a language which was unintelligible to others. One day the master, with a number of devotees, came to the house of Ramchandra Dutt. As soon as the kirtan commenced, he went into samadhi and put his feet on the lap of Nityagopal, who was seated nearby. Overcome with emotion, the boy burst into tears. After a while, the master regained partial consciousness. A woman devotee had a motherly attitude towards this boy and often invited him to her home. The master warned him against this sort of intimacy, saying, "Don't go there often. A sannyasin must observe very rigid rules. He must not look at even the portrait of a woman. He should not associate with a woman even if she be a great devotee. A monk, even though he is a master of his senses, should observe these rules to set an example to others, who will learn renunciation from this ideal of self-denial. Otherwise, they will succumb to temptation." This, of course, does not apply to householders. A sannyasin is a world teacher. The listener may not have forgotten Gopal's saying, one of the two young devotees of Baranagore who used to come to Sri Ramakrishna during his sadhana period and died prematurely. The master was sometimes heard to remark that perhaps Nityagopal was that boy reincarnated. I hope you like this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.